So what are some of the misconceptions, in your opinion, about executive presence, and how can individuals work to overcome them? Because it's a term that's thrown around very liberally, I find, and you're correct in what you said before. It's not just about appearance. There are a whole lot of other elements that tend to fall into that whole, net of executive presence. So, but there are some misconceptions. So what are your observations in that area?
I think one of the big ones is that sense that to have that sense of presence, you have to be the charismatic extrovert, sort of the one that everyone notices, and not necessarily. Uh, you can absolutely have presence and be very still and very quiet and very poised, but you know when you're going to put out a comment and you know how to make that comment land. And I think to me, what encapsulates that is that sense of you don't want to stop being you. Executive presence is not, let's do a little bit of fairy dust, I'm going to turn you into someone else. You still have to be authentically you, but it's also about perhaps refining or honing some of the edges of who you are in terms of then how you show up. And there's that sense sometimes that, well, does my presence kind of, once I've nailed it, does it stop there? And I think it keeps evolving. Like I look at myself and I go, my sense of understanding of who I am continues to evolve. I'm continuing to learn about myself, even though I feel like I've been on a self-awareness journey for many, many years. But the more I understand about myself and the more I understand about the environment that I'm in, the more I bring that into the room when I'm with people. And for me, the key thing with presence, it is that sense of there's an energy that you have when you're in the room. You notice what's going on around you. And it's also how you make people feel, because people who have really good executive presence, they notice. They notice what people need. They're aware of the people that they're with, and they're genuinely interested in the people that they're with as well. Whereas I think sometimes, sort of probably in the past, executive presence perhaps felt a little bit egocentric. It's all about me, 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 notice me. Whereas I think executive presence encompasses a much more broad-ranging definition these days.
I like that. I really like that. Because there's also the thing that, well, when does a person know that they're presenting themselves authentically? And when do they ever fully understand who they are as a person and how they should be showing up? I think a lot of people get quite confused over that. Um, and they'll
And that takes a lot
emulate
of work.
people, because emulating someone else who you think, oh, that person's got fabulous executive presence, I'll be like them. But it may not be, aligned with who you are as a person and where you're going. So I think some people can make some big mistakes in that area. And that can play out in what they wear too. People trying to wear the same thing as someone else. That can often work against people.
Yeah, and I also think it's the consistency. It's a bit like when you have a leader. One of the hardest things with working with a not so good leader is when they're inconsistent. One day you get nice boss, next day you get bad boss. And, because you go, oh, this person, it's hard to deal with them. And I think it's the same with when you present yourself. If there's a consistency in how you show up, that builds that sense of reputation and brand, because people go, I know what I'm getting when that person turns up. People always say to me, Michelle, you're so well groomed. And I take pride in that, because I go, oh, thank you. Well, I put effort into it, but I also like being well groomed. It works for me. So if I turned up one day and did the whole grunge thing, people would immediately go,
what's wrong with Michelle?
what's happened to Michelle? Because that is so not her. And I think once you're comfortable, it's like finding your style. So, and it goes with that sense of self-awareness, because when you're aware of who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, it's like, what's the wrapper that goes around it? And the wrapper is the outer layer of how you show up sort of physically. And that includes what you wear. And when all of those line up and when all of those are consistent, you get that sense of congruence where the person goes, yeah, I get Julie, I get Michelle, when I see them, they are the same person. And that builds trust as well, which is really important.
Totally. Yeah, I'm on the same page with you 100% on all of what you've just said. Absolutely. When there's discrepancies or where there's what did you say, inconsistencies in how a person shows up, yes, it allows people to have all sorts of questions in their minds as to, should I actually, be working with this person? Are they going to be good at what they do? Are they going to fall over one day? What's going to happen? So no, totally, totally agree with you there. And I also like what you said about a person that, you bring an energy into a room, and you can do that, physically, you can bring an energy into the room in terms of the amount of space you take up, but you can also, in terms of emotionally, you bring an energy into the room. And what a lot of people don't understand is that how you feel, how you behave can also be influenced dramatically by how you present yourself, how you dress yourself, the colors you wear, the style elements that you wear, how you accessorize yourself. All of that, if it's aligned with the theme of the room that you're going into and the people that you're going to meet, it can make an enormous difference to your persona and how much energy you do bring into the room.
Oh, look, I couldn't agree more. I had a session recently and I knew it was going to be a challenging session. And I turned up in bright yellow and purples and still on palette in terms of my color scheme and all that kind of stuff in terms of what works for me, having had my colors done. But it was interesting because for me, it was about me feeling good, me feeling this sense of joy about being in the room. And it did elevate, and it was interesting because everyone commented as they walked into the room, wow, you look really bright today. And it just set the tone for how I wanted that session to go.